notes this morning. Councillor Ite is away. Councillor Duncan, I'm not sure about, but we're going to carry on anyway. And first on the agenda, after I'm calling the meeting to order, is a moment of reflection. Thank you. So disclosure of pecuniary interest, you can do it now or at any point in time through the meeting. You have one. And next is confirmation of the agenda. And before we even ask for a motion, we have one addition, and that is under 13.1. So it would be maybe 14.2. And that is a matter pertaining to an identifiable individual. And that's going to be a verbal report. It's something that's just came up. And so if I could have a motion to approve the agenda as amended, that would be great. Councillor Kazenberg, Councillor McKenzie. Those in favor? That's carried. We're going to move on to consent agenda. And we have items 5.1 to 5.8 and the council minutes of August the 4th and the council minutes from the special meeting on August the 18th. Anyone want to see anything pulled for discussion? Councillor Kazenberg.
Good morning, Mr. Warden. No, it's not pulled so much as I just want to point out that I believe on page 8 of our agenda package, it is the minutes of a meeting. At the top, it says council reconvened from closed session at approximately 10:44. And I think we were returning from recess, so I'm not convinced that that line is correct.
So through the warden, we have made that change for the print off version.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you are correct. So yeah, but the printed copy I have doesn't say that.
The one that we'll sign, we'll have it changed.
Yeah, changed. Okay, anything else? Not seeing any hands here, so I have a motion. Council receives consent agendas item 5.1 to 5.8 and approves the August 14th, 2022 council minutes and the August 18th, 2022 special council minutes. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor Kelly. Questions? Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Now we're going to move on. And next on the agenda, we got a public meeting, so I need a motion to recess for the purpose of holding the planning public meeting at approximately 9:04. Moved by Councillor McDermott, seconded by Councillor Wilhelm. Those in favor? That's carried. So we're in a public meeting. And on that, we have first, we will approve the confirmation of or disclosure of pecuniary interest. If you have one, or you have to declare it now or any point in time through here.
Just call this to order as well.
And I have to call this public meeting to order. Confirmation of the agenda. Motion to approve that. Well, Councillor Wilhelm, Councillor McDermott. Those in favor? It's carried. And approval of minutes from August the 4th, which is our last public meeting we had. I need a motion to approve that. Councillor McDermott, seconded by Councillor Kazenberg. Those in favor? That's carried. And now we're going to move on to the reports. Subdivision application NP22-01 and NP22-02. Sound 6 investments, and we have Jessica and Susanna both doing this?
Just Susanna.
Just Susanna? Morning, Susanna.
Morning.
So we're ready to go on this public meeting here.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Warden and Council. This is an application for 2 plans of subdivision, and the file numbers are NP22-01 and NP22-02. The property is north of Listwell, and the applicant is Steve Willenstein, Sound 6 Investments. The agent is Scott Patterson from Patterson Planning Consultants, and I'll share my screen now to review the application. So this is the location of the subject property where the red star is, and you can see it's on Walton Avenue in the area north of Listowel. This is an air photo showing the two applications, so NP22-01 at the south, NP22-02 north of that, and both applications front Walton Avenue. So here are the properties with the official plan mapping shown on the map as well. The purple area here is an urban fringe designation in the County of Perth official plan. And the black line here shows the delineation between the area subject to the County of Perth official plan and then to the south, the Listowel official plan. So the residential designation in the Listowel official plan is yellow. And this is the subject properties are within the urban fringe designation in the county official plan. Oops. So here is NP22-01, which is the property further south. And this proposes to create 6 lots. The area of these lots, the total area applicable to the plan of subdivision is 2.2 acres. And you can see that the average lot size is 1,500 square meters. Oops. Now here is the second application, NP22-02. This is 3.9 acres and the total of 9 lots to be created, ranging in size from 1,500 square meters to about 2,600 square meters. Now of note, the access for lots 7, 8, 9 are via easement. So this is referred to as a servicing easement extending out to Walton Avenue. So the planning report in your package, in the council package, reviews the planning issue, and I propose to review those at a high level. The first is a consideration with regards to density. And as I made the point, the Listowel official plan is for the area south of the subject property. So the Listowel official plan policies are not relevant to this area. The relevant official plan policies are the urban fringe designation. The Listowel OP policies with regards to residential designation are included in the planning report. And the density guidelines for single detached dwellings is 10 to 25 units per hectare. So in order to provide context for those policies, this slide shows the existing density here, which has been developed on private services in the area on Walton Avenue around the subject property is 1 unit per hectare. For context, the area here is an area selected in the developed land within the residential designation in the Listowel official plan. And this is about 11 lots per hectare, which we would consider within the guideline provided by the Listowel official plan residential designation, residential guidelines for low density residences, which is between 10 and 25 units per hectare. And then the density proposed for NP22-01 and NP22-02 is between 7 and 6 lots per hectare. So the density would be considered low. And just to highlight the planning considerations with regards to density is around protecting agricultural land, creating walkable communities, reducing servicing and municipal infrastructure costs, and mitigating climate change, as creating walkable communities reduces the needs for cars for transportation purposes. Then the second planning consideration is with regards to community design. I'll just highlight at this point that there is a stormwater management pond proposed to be created here, which is very important to the municipality North Perth and the stormwater management in this area. And the proposed creation of this pond has resulted in flagpole shaped lots for lots 7, 8, 9. As I mentioned earlier, there are easements proposed in order to access the lot 7, 8, 9 at the back. And while this works for technical reasons, the engineers have reviewed it and have no concerns with this proposed access. There might be an opportunity for improving the community design in this area. The third consideration in the planning report, well, I'll just show you before I go to the third issue in the planning report, is this is a photo of the area. So the land that's proposed to be developed is on the east side of Walton Ave, and on the west side, existing single detached dwellings on private services on the west side of Walton Avenue. And this is standing at the north end of the subject site. So the subject site is here and looking south. So the other consideration identified in the planning report is with regards to affordable and attainable housing. The planning department is discussing this issue with all residential applications. The planning justification report submitted by Patterson Planning Consultant notes that the development is not providing affordable or attainable housing. And the direction for affordable and attainable housing is included in the listable official plan, which states a minimum of 20% of all housing units to be provided within the listable official plan will be within the affordability range established by the province. And of note, the urban fringe as policies, as I referenced, are the applicable policies for this area. So the planning policies in the urban fringe designation do not include a requirement for every development to incorporate affordable units. The planning report also notes, summarizes the servicing requirements as proposed. So Walton Avenue will be reconstructed to an urban standard, including new asphalt and sidewalks. Sanitary sewer will be installed in Walton Avenue. Water service will be provided. Municipal hydrants, fire hydrants will be installed, and stormwater is being addressed through a comprehensive servicing strategy. And as I mentioned, that will include the development of a stormwater management pond east of the subject lands. And finally, a zoning bylaw amendment will follow the plan of subdivision application. So then to conclude the planning department's review, the key consideration, well, perhaps that initially I would say the direction provided for the work undertaken in the municipality of North Perth for the Northeast Master Servicing Plan indicate that there is support for this portion of the Wallace Ward to be developed and incorporated into the listable planning area. There has been a substantial work undertaken by the municipality of North Perth for this type of development, or for development in this area, I should say. The key considerations for the applications are what kind of development the community wishes for this area of Walton Avenue, with the understanding that the decisions made at this time will potentially affect planning choices in the future. The application was reviewed by the municipality of North Perth, and the municipality of North Perth has indicated that they're supporting the applications. So this meeting today is being held in order to receive comments for the public. And those are all of my comments.
Thank you, Susanna. I do have one delegation. Maybe we're going to have the delegation. I got an idea there could be some questions here, so let's have the delegation, and then we can have questions for Susanna or Scott Patterson, who's the delegation on behalf of the applicant here. Morning, Scott.
Good morning, Warden, Council.
And we're ready for your delegation.
Very limited presentation this morning, Warden Aitchison. Basically, you're in support of the application submitted by Sound 6 Investments. I'd like to thank Susanna for her presentation. I think she accurately summarized the details of the project. I would note the lands are going to be on full services when they're extended through the reconstruction of Walton Avenue. And the design of the property was somewhat limited and directed by the conveyance of the lands for the stormwater management facility. Those lands are under the ownership of the municipality of North Perth now. So that was the main directive and deciding factor in the design features of the subdivisions before you today. And it was also a consideration of the surrounding area, the large lot subdivision or large lots to the west of the property, and some recent consents that were approved to the north of the property as well that allowed for large lot singles. I'm here this morning to answer any questions and to listen to public comments and feedback, and then work with staff on a staff report and recommendation that will be brought back for county council.
Thank you, Scott. Questions for either Scott or Susanna? Councillor Wilhelm.
I totally disagree with the density. And if it's going to be on services, it should be considerably higher in density. And if people don't agree with that, and on the other side of their mouth, they're saying they're protecting ag land, it's a crock. Either put the density in where it should be and abide by the rules, or what's the sense of trying to protect agricultural land at all?
Other comments or questions? Councillor McKenzie.
Well, I guess my only concern is very similar to Bob's. And my understanding, reading the report, they're all single family units, and there's no semis in there. And certainly the lots are big enough that they could handle a semi, and it would increase your density by quite a bit.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Agates, Deputy Ward Agates, I mean.
I agree with Bob Wilhelm. I think the lots are far too big. 7, 8, and 9, I'm not sure why you can't put a road in there and a little cul-de-sac and make a few more lots in there. But these lots seem to be extreme when they're going to be on a service. It'd be different if there was septic and water, but there's not. So I think that the lots need to shrink.
Councillor McDermott.
Did the proponent, did they convey that the land that the stormwater management was going on, was that then given to the township? Or yeah, township? Like, did they give that land to the town? They did, okay.
I'm not sure with regards, I mean, I see that both Councillor Kasenberg and Scott Patterson nodding, so I'm not sure what the status of that is. And perhaps has that transfer already happened, or? Yes, they're both nodding.
Yeah, I can jump in. The lands were actually purchased by the municipality of North Perth from Sound 6 Investments. And that transaction was completed quite some time ago. So those lands are totally under the ownership of the municipality at this point. And just a quick question, and maybe Susan, or not a question, but a comment, and Susanna may be able to correct me, but the urban fringe policies applicable to this area only allow for single detached dwellings. There is no opportunity for semi-detached or multiple dwellings of any kind. That would require an official plan amendment.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Cullen.
Yes, through you, Warden Aitchison, and yes, I appreciate all the comments from the councillors here. And this land, we are working with Sound 6 Developments, with him, obviously, with the Stormwater Management Plan is a key development for our Northeast. Yes, density is crucial. And again, respect all the comments that were made here today. This actually does complement what is on the west side of Walton Avenue. And again, working with this developer, and the recommendation from North Perth is that we move forward with this application. And again, I respect all the comments about the density. However, there are other areas in the municipality of North Perth where we can adjust the density rules there. Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Councillor Kasenberg.
Thank you. And just to echo what Councillor Kellum has said, I think that the municipality worked in reasonable faith with Sound 6 Investments and received conveyance of that stormwater management plot at a rate that was quite reasonable given the mandate and the taxpayers' purse in North Perth. As a consequence, I think, we sent certainly every signal that we intended to try to be realistic and fair in their proposition. They have increased the density on that side of the road versus the other side, which are significant estate lots, as Councillor Kellum has mentioned. And I think while I'm one who would prefer to see the flag-shaped area intensified or densified, whatever word you'd like to use for that, at this time, I'm not sure, as Mr. Patterson has alluded, that's an easy proposition, given the position of that land outside the urban boundaries of the Listowel ward. Those are my comments.
Anything further, Councillor Hurley?
Yeah, no, through you, Warden. Again, I'm digesting this all here. And of course, densification is an issue. So essentially we densify here, there is a storm water management component that would have to be looked at that is not able to fit into this, correct? If we were to double the amount of houses here, then we're into the stormwater management like a swale. Am I gathering that right? And that would take a whole restructuring and re-engineer of the site. Is that fair to say, Susanna?
I don't know if Scott Patterson would be able to take that question. I would need to defer to the municipalities engineer. But we could take that question back for discussion unless Scott is able to respond.
Through you, Warden. Yes, the North Perth master plan for that area basically recognizes the stormwater management pond in this location. It is and again, I'm not an engineer, but it is the down gradient location and an appropriate location for the pond before it outlets further to the river. The lands, again, are under the ownership of North Perth on the basis that was the identified and proper location for the swim pond. So yes, I don't believe there is a chance to go back and re-look at the potential location of that swim pond. I think that, for lack of a better term, that ship has sailed. And we're left with the lot configuration and the lands that we have now. And that was the basis for the lot design that came forward. Granted, they are deep lots, granted, they are large lots. But I would say in the context of the surrounding area, these would be appropriate. And there are other lands that potentially are going to be brought into the North Perth boundary and other areas of town where the density that is being sought would be potentially more appropriate than this particular location.
Other comments or questions? I got a couple quick questions. Those homes on the west side there, were they developed in the last 10 years per se?
Longer.
Longer? Because I remember doing something at Land Division, one of my first shots on Land Division. There was 5 homes being built on a bunch of land. So those are basically 2.2 acre lots on the west side of the road, right? Which is half the size of the ones you got going in this. And I agree, it's truly not dense enough, but I understand why you're doing it the way you're doing it. Don't get me wrong. So on the west side, you've got on private services. So if you put municipal services down there, are they going to be hooked into that? Or are they going to still stay on private services? Because I believe they were probably put there at the time because there was no services, hence the bigger lots. But would they be put onto the municipal services and then perhaps sever those lots and put another house up in other lots? Let's see, Councillor Kellum first, and then Councillor Kassenberg.
Through your Warden, this may be a situation. I think they will be asked, and then it will be their choice. But it's kind of similar to the development that we did in the village of Atwood, where people that did have septic systems in their own wells, and then had the opportunity to join at that time. So I think down the road they will have the opportunity and choice to do so.
Okay. Councillor Kassenberg, you had comments?
I think I'll refine that a little bit. Generally, in North Perth, the proposition is that when services are introduced, there is a period with which the property owners must connect to the municipal service infrastructure. And so we do expect that those homes, those large estate homes at this point and lots will have a deadline for connection in the future window, probably 5-10 years. But we do anticipate that they will be required to connect at some point in the near future as part of the master plan.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Not seeing any hands. I have a motion. The county council receives the subdivision applications NP22-01 and NP22-02 / sound section investments report for information. And that Perth County Council receives comments from the public for consideration regarding subdivision applications NP22-01 and NP22-02 while reserving their decision for a future meeting of Perth County Council. Moved by Councillor Kelvin, second by Councillor McDermott. Last chance for comments or questions. Those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so we don't really have anything else for the public meeting. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Susanna. And I need a motion that the public meeting be adjourned at 9:27. Councillor McDermott, Councillor Kazenberg. Those in favor? That is carried. And we're going to move on to County of Perth IT and GIS strategic plan. Do we need a motion to come back into?
Yes.
We need a motion that council reconvenes at approximately 1 minute after I just said. That'll be 9:28. Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Wilhelm, those in favor? And that would be carried. Now, we're going to go to the GIS IT strategic plan report. And on the form, it said it was Steve, but I have Randy sitting here, so.
Well, Randy, and then we're gonna bring Susan in as well, but Randy will kick it off.
Okay, Randy's gonna kick her off.
Good morning, Warden and members of council. We're just gonna wait for Susan and Gary to pop in.
We got Gary. Almost there with Susan. And there's Susan. Okay, now you're good, Randy.
Great. Good morning, Warden and members of council. One of the goals in the county's current strategic plan is corporate sustainability, which focuses on developing, enhancing, and implementing technology solutions that support efficient, effective, and exceptional internal collaboration and external service delivery. To support that goal and recognizing the current and ever-growing importance of technology, the 2021 to 2023 Technology Services Business Plan identified the development of an IT and GIS strategic plan as one of the division's top priorities. The aim was to create a strategic plan that would lay the groundwork to help focus and guide the current and future direction, enabling the organization to react and embrace new technologies as they become available. After completing an RFP process, Perry Group Consulting was engaged to develop the IT and GIS strategic plan for the organization. Even though the project was to develop a strategic plan specifically for both IT and GIS, it is considered critical to the entire organization and approached as a corporate initiative with full staff and senior management support, and not just as a technology services division project. In addition, recognizing their importance as customers of GIS, separate interview workshops were held with stakeholder staff from the member municipalities and their CAOs, seeking feedback and input specific to the current and future states of GIS services. The IT and GIS strategic plan identified a long list of current and possible future projects during the information gathering process. While additional work still remains for senior management to further evaluate and prioritize these identified projects, there has been progress on certain priority initiatives from the plan. These include recruitment is currently underway for both the IT support technician and GIS technician positions. A service desk solution review and selection process has started. GIS staff are actively developing, editing, and testing data required for the NG 911 migration. Several infrastructure projects are near or fully completed that contribute to business continuity and IT risk programs. The IT and GIS strategic plan will be an important document for us to use to continue to guide our modernization within the organization. We'd like to thank Susan Chase and the teams at Perry Group and Esri for their work on this initiative. At this point, I'll turn it over to Susan to run through the presentation introducing the IT and GIS strategic plan for the Perth County. Thank you.
Randy. Morning, Susan.
Good morning, Warden. Thank you very much for having me today. Let me just share my screen. Okay, just want to make sure this is good. Everybody can see it just fine.
Good to hear.
Excellent. Thank you very much again. Thank you, Randy, for that introduction. Thrilled to hear how much has actually already gone on. I mean, it's taken us just a little bit of time to be able to get in front of council. So it's great to hear that progress has been made, especially in some of the critical areas that we had identified. So what I'm going to do today is quickly go through an overview of the plan, how we got to the plan, and then the key recommendations in the plan for council to get a better understanding. And like I said, some of the highlights that we have in place here. So first of all, just a little bit about us, Perry Group. Perry Group, we have been in business for just over 5 years, although we grew out of a previous company that had been doing public sector consultations for well over 30 years. When the principals there retired, we started Perry Group. Perry Group is focused solely on municipalities, really. We have done a little bit of work with boards and agencies, but primarily we're municipalities. Every one of us has worked full-time for a municipality, so we have that real-world experience as well. And that's really developed us as a really strong team, really helping our clients leverage technology and do the very best that they can with it. We are focused on IT, that's where we all come from, but it's IT, GIS, and even more recently, digital strategies, which is really taking technology to that next level of digital services. For this particular project, because of the emphasis on the GIS strategy that was required as well, but also because of the strength of the GIS environment that was already at Perth County, we partnered with Esri Canada for this project. Esri, of course, is the market leader in GIS geospatial solutions, and unfortunately, they weren't able to join me for this call today, so I'm going to do my best to take you through it. Typically, Perry Group, we are fully capable of doing a lot of GIS, but like I said, there was a lot of strength in the GIS environment here, so we wanted to bring in the expert for this project. So very quickly, the context, why is it important to have a plan? We know that modern organizations today really use technology to simplify their processes and to help deliver services in a much more efficient way. Your staff rely on technology to perform their job to do work such as, planning applications, generating work orders, tracking work orders, asset management, of course, financial systems. We also know that over the last couple of years, we've all become much more dependent on technology. Numbers are showing us that an astounding 94% of Canadians are online now, including that fastest growing segment of seniors who are now over 70% of them are online. 80% of Canadians booked their vaccine appointments over the last couple of years online. Yep, some did have to have assistance from caregivers perhaps or family and friends, but still 80% booked their vaccines online. 85% of Canadians have made online purchases this past year alone. So all of this tells us that people really expect to be able to do business online, and they really do expect their government to be able to as well. The previous Treasury Board president stated this, we can't be a blockbuster government serving Netflix citizens. And I think that's very true for all of us, all municipalities. This has really resulted in Canada launching the Canadian Digital Services program, which intends to modernize the way the government of Canada designs and delivers digital services. And in this time of Amazon and Netflix, Google, and all the other digital service channels, we believe that local government also really needs to redefine what this means for municipal service delivery. Customer and staff expectations have changed. They want access to the information they need when they want it. They want online services to be able to be easy to understand, easy to interact with, and to be tailored or even intuitive to their own needs. And of course, available anywhere. We're all used to that. Anytime you do a Google search, it's really tailored to our own very specific requirements. Add to this the growth that so many communities are experiencing. Using technology helps to deliver services, helps staff to take advantage of the efficiencies a technology solution can provide, from customer service to online permit tracking, to requesting time off, even helping staff to assist customers who don't have access to technology themselves. So all of this tells us that technology is very important, but technology can be expensive. We know that, and there are so many options out there. So a review of the services being offered at the county really provided us with the opportunity to identify what's working well and where there are opportunities to improve. So the project objectives were really to take a look at what's working right now in both the IT and the GIS environments, and of course to provide recommendations for service improvements. And these service improvements were not only from the TS division out, but also for staff to provide their services. We were asked to do a comparative analysis with other municipalities. Always tricky to do. It's one thing I've certainly learned in my 20 years of consulting is municipal government is kind of the same everywhere. We all have to adhere to the same legislation. And yet every single organization I go to is unique in its own way. So doing these kind of comparisons are a little bit tricky, but we have done, I think, a pretty decent job of it, and I will be able to provide you with some of that comparative information. We took a deep look at the technical environment. So the network, the switching, security, all those back-end things to make sure that it was a strong foundation for growth and for adding bits and pieces to it. And we hope that we really developed a plan that really helped to ensure effective and efficient delivery of high quality services. We note the strategic plan mentions technology a number of times, also mentions efficiencies, but the one statement, technology is to be embraced as a means of enabling culture and effectively delivering services. So we recognize that it's very important to council as well as to staff that we are able to best leverage technology. So this is an overview of our work plan, how we did it. This is our most common methodology that we use. We have a discovery phase and then a strategize phase. And then of course we develop a plan. In the discovery phase, this is where we talk to as many people as we possibly can. We did a number of interviews with the TS team, with staff. We did an online survey. We also met with, I think Randy mentioned up front, we met with the member municipalities for the GIS interviews because they're part of that entire program. So quite a bit of conversations were taking place, as well as the investigations and analysis into some of the other areas. And then we were able to do some strategy work, and that's where we worked with, again, the leadership team, with the TS team, to really come up with where do we want to go with all this? What themes are we finding that have come out from the feedback we received from all the different departments, and what are the key recommendations? And from there, of course, we developed the plan. And I'll get more into that a little bit later. At this point, I just want to really say thank you to staff, to leadership, to the member municipalities, and of course, the TS team for their engagement and their willingness to really talk with us so openly. So to get into the findings, I'm going to go kind of quickly through this because there was quite, like I said, there was quite a bit of work there, but I want to give council just a bit of a context here. So we do our assessment based on this model. And this is something that Perry Group has developed over the years. And we just find that when an organization can build really from the ground up, that's where we see the greatest successes. So each layer requires very specific attention. And each layer also requires very specific resources. They're not easy to do, and it's not quite as transferable. Although I do have to mention the team you have, they're small, but they're mighty. They do try to address all of these different layers, which is most impressive, I would say. So the bottom layer down there is the technology infrastructure layer. So this is your network. This is the foundation pieces that I mentioned earlier. So, you know, taking a look at the server, the storage, the different devices that are being used. But also we take a close look at cybersecurity, disaster recovery, what plans are in place. Once you've got a strong enough layer, then we get into the business solutions layer, which is next up. And these are the applications or the software tools that staff really use to deliver the services that they do. Different things like your finance system, the HR system, asset management, that sort of thing. Next up, we have what we call the integration layer, and this is what starts piecing everything together. Here's where we identified GIS. Even though GIS is a solution in of its own, it's also key to integration, to enabling data to be shared across the different systems, but also out to the customer as well through maps and spatial related information. But here's where we start seeing the opportunity to do a lot more analytics, business intelligence, reporting, because if you have these pieces in place, you're able to access all the different pieces of data and the different systems that you have in place. And then, of course, at the top is our customer-facing layer. So your website, how social media is being used, if you have any apps that are out there, the different chat opportunities that might be there. So here is, it's a very busy slide, so I'm going to talk just highlight through it here very quickly. But you will note it's color coded. So for those of you who can identify the colors, we have in the bottom layer, your infrastructure layer, there's a lot of green, which means it's very good. So we found a very good solid foundation when it comes to the infrastructure. The team has done a great job. There's a few opportunities for some improvement there, but overall, very strong. In the next layers, I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail in the next couple of slides, but you'll see that there's quite a bit of green, but there's also the yellows and oranges there too. So there's some work to be done. We'll talk about that in a minute. Over to the left, we have the corporate posture slide we have, and this is where you see that's kind of sea of red. Don't worry about that too much just yet. Let me just talk about it. So corporate posture is where we see things like governance, what kind of program is there in place for the decision making, for priority setting, and that when it comes to all things technology. That's definitely something that is lacking at the county right now. So we've got some recommendations around that. The risk management and security, we've identified that in that yellow-orange color. I do want to point out here, security is strong. We were not concerned with what we found with overall cybersecurity. The team is doing an excellent job of doing their very best at making sure that the security protocols are in place. There's always opportunities for improvement. And as you all know, security is constantly being tested. So it's always evolving and always requires attention. So I think as almost a principle, have never identified this as really solid green because it can never be. So I just wanted to point that out. There's other opportunities. Business continuity planning, disaster recovery is of concern. There is an opportunity for improvement there. Same, and Randy actually mentioned that they've already started doing some work on that. And of course, the cloud. Everything is moving to the cloud these days. How is the county embracing it is what we looked at. And we found there's, again, some opportunities here. So this slide here really summarizes, there's a lot more details in the report. I won't go through every one of these things, but again, I just want to highlight the primary network infrastructure, very strong, very reliable. Everybody told us that as well. In addition to our assessment, we found, we noted that remote work is available through a very secure virtual private network access point. So that's excellent to see. The business solution side, many of you remember that was kind of a lot of yellows and oranges there. There's a lot of solutions that are implemented. Many of them are really not fully leveraged. So staff are using parts of them and they really haven't had the opportunity to take them, learn new modules, take them to the next level, figure out how things really work. So that's an opportunity, definitely. We did we took a focused look really at Paramedic Services, given all the change and pressures on that department over these last couple of years. We noted they have a lot of really current systems and there are very stable systems that are implemented, but there's opportunities to strengthen those a little bit more. And so we'll talk about that later. Again, the integration GIS layer, as I mentioned, very well established GIS services, a lot of best practices deployed. I mean, kudos to Gary and Sam, they've done a great job there. There's a direct engagement with the member municipalities, which is very strong, moving in the right direction. We think there's opportunities to provide even greater automation there, so ease the pressure on the team, but also to start building on data and how can we take greater advantage of the data we have for the evidence-based decision-making, analytics, and intelligence. So we think there's more opportunities for growth there. On the customer-facing side, looks good. Website is very good, easily accessed. There's many customer-facing features. We're looking to standardize because you've got a few different products that are in use on the website. But we also found that there is an opportunity here, we say, to improve the back-end solutions. So there's a lot of online forms on the website, but they're not they don't have the workflow and that built in to the back-end system. So it becomes a very manual process from that online form to staff to actually be able to do something with it. So good, but ready to grow. And we have some opportunities. There are some gaps that do need to be addressed. We also took a look at the online services, that customer-facing layer a little bit deeper. This is where we pretend to be a citizen, basically. And we go to the website and we see what we can find. We go looking for different things. We find out if there's any missing links. We talk to the team about it to make sure that we haven't missed something, just to validate it. And what we found is Perth County it's pretty strong. There's a lot of online services that are being offered. So this is one of the comparator groups that we did, and you'll see that it is actually quite strong. We do note, however, again, that the online services, there is that gap, right? There isn't that integration in the back end. So it might appear to be an online service to the customer, but for staff, it can still be very manual process. So that is the opportunity to improve here. But overall, it's quite strong. When we look at some of the leaders, for example, Calgary is considered a leader in online services in Canada. And I know it's really hard to compare Perth County with Calgary. I get that. But when we start looking at the ratios, it starts becoming a little bit easier to compare these things. But Calgary ranks at about 79% for their online service availability. So Perth is doing a great job. You know, you're kind of right in the middle. There's some who are not doing as well. Certainly, there are some doing better, but we still think that there's always the opportunity for improvement. This here diagram chart, whatever, shows kind of the details of what we found. And so it's very clear the Y's or the greens are, yep, we found that online, that's good. The N's is no, it wasn't available. And of course, the orange or partials is it was somewhat available. But again, we do note lacking that workflow that's been built into it. Ideally, what you want to see is an online form is filled out by the customer, which then populates a back-end system or generates a work order automatically that staff can now use rather than having to retype into another system. And you want to have that loop be closed so that we can, it's all digital throughout. So just building on those efficiencies where possible. So I guess to summarize, key positives, there's a lot of confidence in the tech services team. Everybody we talked to in the survey results was resoundingly positive. They like their team, they have confidence in the knowledge and the support that the team provides. So that's awesome. Like I said, strong cybersecurity tools and practices are very evident. Networks infrastructure, very stable, very reliable. It's a strong foundation now that we can build on. There are several good business solutions in place. Website's great, several online forms and processes in place, and of course the GIS team, as I said, very strong and based on best practices. The opportunities, however, these are some of the highlights here. We really need to see how the team can establish more formal service management processes. Because they're such a small, again, but mighty team, it's very ad hoc, very reactive. So we'd like to see them be able to plan things a little bit more, to be able to have the opportunity to strategize and think about things rather than just always reacting. We'd like to see stronger policies and procedures in place so they know the service they have to deliver, but also their clients, the end users, and that know what services to expect and what they can ask for and where there might not be the opportunity to. I mentioned corporate governance. It's really important that I think Randy mentioned as well up front that this is not just a technology services division plan, it's a corporate plan. And really it's about driving decision-making. Which system, which technology is the most important to help drive the organization forward to meet your strategic goals. And that decision can't be left to the tech services manager. It really is for the corporate leadership to decide. Taking in projects so that we can better plan for them, better resource for them. It's all super important. We had a really number of conversations about governance with the team, and they understand, they get the importance of it. So we're very hopeful on there. As I mentioned, cybersecurity, we will never rest. As well as anybody, this is always a concern. So it continues to evolve, need to be continued to be invested in. There's a need to develop a more formal risk management program that includes business continuity, disaster recovery. Every organization has corporate emergency management plans, how you're dealing with that. Technology is always a big part of that. So how do we make sure that technology is covered in any kind of emergency or disaster? What do you do when the lights go out on your computers and stuff? Business solutions, we'd like to see them based more on corporate requirements and that priority setting I mentioned earlier. There's a little bit of, department driven decisions on these. These are the ones we're going to go to rather than stepping back and taking a look at it more corporately. What system is best for the entire organization, as opposed to that one business unit, if you will. And I mentioned already about fully digitize those manual paper-based processes. There's quite a few, either from the website, like I said earlier, but we also found that there's a number of manual processes within the departments. They collect the data, they enter it into a spreadsheet, and then they'll put it into a system afterwards, that sort of thing. So we don't want to be wasting that kind of time. So we've got some of the recommendations are based around improving that. And of course, I already said about the GIS program. Let's fully leverage it. Let's get it out there even stronger for the member municipalities. Let's start taking a look at analysis and how we can really grow that program. This slide here is one of the, a couple of the metrics actually that we developed for the organization. I will note here that this does not include the more recent additions to the team of the 2 new people. But what we found, we look at, we've got our suggested range here. When we look at the IT staffing as a percentage of the total, our suggested range is 2.5% to 5%. I will say Gartner Group is higher than that. They're about 4% and higher that they recommend, but not many Ontario municipalities can meet Gartner Group recommendations. But so this is why we've come up with this one here. This is what we most commonly see. And even with the additions, Perth is still on the very, very low end. So we're a little bit concerned about the underinvestment in technology. We found the same when we took a look at the operating expenditures of the organization. The county is a little bit underspent and again, underinvested in technology. So we think there's some opportunities there. Speaking of the team, again, they're very, very lean. What they are experiencing now is a lot more demand for their services. They don't have the capacity to meet that demand. It's as simple as that right now. Everybody is looking for technology to help. Like I said before in that earlier slide about that context, everybody's expecting more technology. They need the technology to help them be more efficient to deliver the services that's being expected. They're very reactive. There isn't any succession planning. So, well, let's pick on Randy right now because he's there. If he wins the lottery tomorrow, the county's in trouble, right? Because there isn't somebody who can easily step in and fill even a portion of that job. And that's a concern. The manager himself, he's very hands-on. So he is required to do a lot of that hands-on support, the hands-on operational tactics, that sort of thing. We'd like to see that position elevated a little bit more so that he can do that more strategizing, planning, figuring things out, and also business relationships. They do a great job of meeting the demands of their clients, but we'd like to see a little bit more relationship building so there's a better understanding of the business needs. Data ownership is very unclear, we found, and that might sound a little bit silly to you. Most people think, well, data is technology services responsibility, but it's really not. It's kind of the business department. They need to own that and understand why that's important that they own it and how it can be better shared and leveraged for those kind of evidence-based decision-making again. And one of the things we talked about, of course, in the report was the business department responsibilities. Again, technology is absolutely everywhere right now. There is not a job out there that doesn't use technology in some way. To expect that it's all the responsibility of the tech services department isn't fair and it's not reasonable. So we put the onus back on the business departments now to have some responsibility when it comes to technology, defining their requirements, being part of the decision-making process, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the summary of the findings. So leading into the recommendations, again, these are high-level slides without a lot of depth to them, but we can talk about them certainly. Some of the strategic directions that were identified and what we tried to build the plan around was we really wanted to, of course, optimize the existing processes and automate those processes with the use of technology. This diagram here just shows how all the systems should really be working together. So everybody accesses the same core data, if you will, depending on how they need it presented to them. So whether you're the customer coming in or different staff doing different things, everybody has that access to that same system and that same core data, if you will. So we don't want people having to refer to their Excel spreadsheet, where another department is referring to a business solution system, where another department is, referring to the website that might be getting the data from somewhere else. We really want to see them all have this common source. We want to, or one of our goals, of course, was to improve the services that were provided. You know, we didn't want to just make new things. We wanted to make sure that anything that we brought forward from a technology perspective, a technology solution, actually improved or enhanced the service that was delivered. We really wanted to extend outreach. So it's really important that the county staff are able to do more with what they have. That's very important. And of course, empower employees for the use of technology to serve, again, both their internal customers, but also their external customers. So they were kind of the directions we kept in mind. And so the different projects, there is a lot that came up. Okay, there's a lot of ideas, a lot of projects, a lot of things that we identified, you know, to fill those gaps that were there. So what we did is we went through a prioritization exercise with the leadership team, and these here were the ones that they actually prioritized. I will note here that governance is still a priority, so it's, you know, I think the way we worded it in the report, it had to, you know, it's a foundation layer. You've got to have this strong governance in place so that we can do this prioritization all the time, because you know, we develop this plan for the next few years, but we know within months it changes, right? Priorities will shift for the organization. So it has to be reevaluated. So we try to build it in that kind of fluid way so that it can be changed and priorities can be reset. So these are some of the ones, and again, Randy mentioned several of these are already underway, so that's super good news. Okay, so the next set of slides, what we did was we've aligned the projects to the layers of that model, just to make it easier for continuity here. The other thing I will note here is we have some recommendations in the report and on these slides here of dates. We know that a lot of these projects might not be able to be, well, definitely will not be able to be completed in the year that they're starting, but this is when we're recommending that they at least start being talked about and being addressed in certain ways. So for example, the governance framework here, you might not get it all in place this year, but start having the conversations this year. We also know that these timelines are all really based on the annual budget process. And like I said, priorities shift, things change. So we acknowledge that. So we try to develop the roadmap in that flexible enough way. So for the corporate posture, we know that as we were writing this report, they were already working on cyber liability insurance, cybersecurity, continuing to enhance that. So that was well underway. The new projects we've recommended, as I said, is really that governance. And that's what this little diagram here, it shows how it all ties together, continue to enhance security and start working on that business continuity disaster recovery plan. From the infrastructure side, currently they had plans upgrades to the phone system, a bunch of different hardware upgrades. One of the things we strongly recommend in the report is continue with the annual refresh of hardware and the annual investment into hardware replacement. Super important. Too often we see, I mean, you know this even just from asset replacement, from community assets, you can't stop working on it. And it's the same thing with this internal network infrastructure. It's really important to keep that going. We've recommended a service desk or help desk solution, and as well the system monitoring tools so that the team has a better idea of everything that's happening with the different systems that they have in place with the network and how it's all working and operating. From the business solutions side, a key one we think is the Microsoft Office 365 solution. Provides a lot more opportunity for collaboration, sharing documents, sharing files across the organization and with other partners. It's a tricky one. It's super flexible, has a lot of great functionality. It can be a little bit pricey though, right? So it really needs a deep dive review and assessment. The team can certainly work with their Microsoft partner to get that assessment done. So we strongly recommend that be a priority to look at. Several of the other projects in place, economic development need a contact management solution. I mentioned Paramedic Services earlier, so we're recommending that a plan be put together for them to better able leverage technology and be better prepared for the evolving technologies that are coming out in the emergency services field. There's so much happening right now. It's incredible to watch. It's mind-boggling to watch it. New land and property management system will really help with planning services to the member municipalities, give them online access so they can see status of applications as well as your developers and everything, but even more importantly, giving staff the tools that they can better manage the tracking of applications. Training, of course, and then the municipal ERP solution. the solution you have in place right now, this is for your core financials, HR, payroll, that sort of thing. It works okay, but we're a little bit concerned about its ability to be sustained in the next few years. So we have strongly recommended that you take a look at that. Is it really fitting? Do like that kind of gap analysis. How well does it fit our needs? How well is it going to fit our needs moving forward? Because it might be time to start considering a replacement. Big job, not something to be taken lightly. We know that. Next, we have the integration and data layer, and a key component here is a document information management plan. How are you dealing with all of your documents, all of your different information, the data? How is it all being pieced? How is it being identified? How is it being sourced? How is it being stored? And that's what that little diagram shows. You really want it all coming together. Like I said, you want everybody, every system that you have, for example, accessing the exact same property information, so that everybody is looking at, 22 Main Street with street spelled in full, as opposed to the acronyms, that sort of thing. So that's just a minor piece, but how is all the data stored is a critical piece of that. Next, we have the geospatial. We've included that. We include that as that integration layer. So I'm going to highlight it here. Again, in the report, there's a lot more details about GIS, but really, it's building on the strong system and framework that is already in place that Gary and his team have really built. So we want to see how we can enhance that by implementing things like a self-service portal for all of your partners with this one. Establishing a community of practice so people can come together and say, these are our priorities. These are the new standards that we need. How do we roll this out, and how do we share this information with everybody? It also needs a governance framework. Again, you've got a lot of partners involved in this. So how do people come together to ensure the priorities? So what project needs to be done first? What data needs to be updated first? That sort of thing. And it's really about creating that strong environment for sharing and for collaboration. Some of the specific projects, it's already mentioned, the Next Gen 911 readiness assessment is underway. We know you've got a big official plan project underway, the Parks and Pedestrian Corridor Planning Project, but there's a few others like the Address Management Solution, Collaboration Framework. County story maps are always something that's super helpful. Open Data Portal is something that many municipalities are building and are being used to great success. Many are surprised at how many people, residents, but also local businesses are interested in the data that you have and are able to readily share. And there's a few other environmental analysis and field maps. And there's other projects there. These are kind of the key initiatives, like I said. And then we've got the customer facing. Again, some really excellent work has already been done here. We note that the big change is probably going to be a customer relationship management system. So easier access for customers to report problems, request services, that sort of thing. Perhaps working with the member municipalities on this in some way, but also for able to track service orders, service requests throughout the organization, and having a full understanding of the trends, the issues, the hotspots, the things like that that are going on. So those are the projects. We also looked, of course, at the resources. So we know that the Tech Services Division really hasn't changed. What we heard is that the Tech Services Division really hasn't changed much in the last few years. It has not really grown over the years to really meet the increasing demands for both the IT side and the GIS side. So we focused really our recommendations for organizational resourcing here based on the roadmap and the projects that have been recommended and accepted by the leadership team. We did quite a bit of analysis, I will say, on resource capacity planning, working with Steve on that one. So we were able to share with him a number of tools that we hope will be helpful for him. So as a new project comes online, how he can see if it fits, if they have the capacity to do it, or what resources are needed. Again, I will note you have added, or it's been approved anyway, those 2 new positions. They aren't here because this was all done before that, and that kind of moment in time. But just say here, the team is great. Let's build on it. Let's not burn them out. We want to keep them growing and feeling good about the job that they do. Their strength is certainly in hardware network management. So we have a bit of a gap on the business solution side. And of course, they are so very reactive. So some of the missing key roles when we did this deep analysis here, of course, the IT support technician, GIS technician, those are the two positions that have been approved. Excellent to see. But some of the areas of missing skill sets, if you will, business analysis, solutions support, project management, integration, and of course, analytics. And again, I do want to emphasize, like the team is great. You know, they dabble in all of these things, but we can't be expecting them to keep working in all these different areas, all these very different skill sets, and be good at it, right? You become, you know, that master of none type of thing. So the target operating model right now, if you will, the team is probably at the high level of what we call the solid utility. You know, you pick up your phone, you get a dial tone, you turn your computer on, it works. Everything kind of works as expected. But what we'd really like to see, and what the leadership team, SMT, really wanted to see, is that TS can become that partner player. They are able to provide more direction and support with the business solutions. So I can go to them and say, I have this problem. You know, I've got the new official plan coming on, for example, and I need help with technology. What can we do? And it's very deliberately designed for that. And we can come up with solutions when we are that partner player. It provides really a transparency about accountabilities. Everybody understands who does what their role is and why it's needed, and is really working towards that full service model that everybody has access to the technology and the tools that they really need. So in order to meet that, we did make these recommendations. And again, it's been the two green positions, the support tech and GIS tech have been approved. We also strongly recommend to start off at least that a business analyst, project manager type position be considered on contract basis for now. There's a lot of projects here. So how can you best achieve this? So hire somebody on contract, everybody gets the feel for what that position can do, and you can refine it a little bit, see exactly what it is that the county requires. But it really does allow us to refocus the priorities and the responsibilities of the existing team. So if Steve and Randy, for example, don't have to focus so much on managing some of these implementations, they're able to better focus on things that they need, like, you know, cloud services, that security, that sort of thing. This model, shifting it a little bit like this, also starts to create a functional alignment with best practices of how tech services departments are typically set up organizationally. And then longer term, so this is what we see as really the target state. So again, we've got those different functional models, but you can see there's further growth in each of the areas, providing additional support. And again, additional focus on those specialized skill sets that are needed. So for example, you know, we'd look over here on the network side of things by adding positions like that support technician, a network analyst, then we get the senior person is able to really focus in on security and dealing with that and other issues like the cloud partnerships and that. Again, we would be adding a full-time business analyst and an application analyst. And the difference here is the business analyst, you know, how does your business work? How can we align technology to it? The application analyst typically provides that support for the specific product that's in use. And they can build some of those integrations perhaps and build reports and that sort of thing. So that kind of programmer coder, if you will. And then building on the GIS side into more of the data and the analytics that come is now such a requirement for any organization. And we're seeing that definitely is a best practice trend that's happening in the GIS world is because they understand data so well, they are taking on that lead role in analytics, business intelligence, that sort of thing. So the expected outcomes of all of this, we believe very strongly. This is another diagram that we noted. The current state of the team, really, they're in this repeatable stage. They do have some processes defined, but they are very reactive. And things are just a little bit ad hoc, right? So by implementing a lot of the recommendations, and this comes down to not just the business solutions, not those projects, but the governance, the systems management, those sorts of other recommendations that have been built into the plan really will help to improve the efficiency, not only of the tech services team, but we think of all the staff because they can better leverage the technology. And we hope, you know, improve cost effectiveness. And then that gets us up to this kind of well-managed area, we think. So you might ask, well, why not right up to this optimized area? Well, the optimized is really that next level. So, you know, once these projects and goals have all been achieved, then we can start looking at full-on digital services. How do we even more leverage technology and analytics and that to become that kind of an organization? And that's really optimizing the use of emerging technologies such as business intelligence, artificial intelligence, and like kind of who knows what is going to be coming. And that's it. So on behalf of our team, again, I'd like to say thank you very much to the tech services team. They've been absolutely awesome, very impressive to get to know. County staff for all of their engagement and openness and honesty. And of course, thank you very much, Warden and Council here for letting me speak.
Okay, if we could just stop the screen share and I can get some faces back. There we go. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Susan. That was certainly an in-depth report, lots to digest and consider. Questions from any of council? Councilor McDermott.
Yeah, through you, the warden. What's the 911 update? What do they have to update on that?
Through the warden, Gary can probably update that the best.
Yes, thank you for that question. Through the warden, NG911 stands for Next Generation. And this is a, it's, hopefully I can explain it well enough, but the traditional system of phones, picking up a phone and calling 911 is going to be changing, and they're moving towards a more digital solution. The term they use is called media agnostic, which means that you can use your mobile phone and you can call 911, you can FaceTime 911, you can chat or text with them. So with that, the federal government with part of the CRTC and a couple of the other Bell Canada, some of the other big players, they're moving by 2024. I think that has changed slightly though with the pandemic, but they had set the goal of 2024 was when they were going to switch from this analog system where you pick up the phone and you call 911 to the digital system or next generation 911. With that, there is a heavy requirement for municipalities to provide data as a requirement. And it has to be in a format that is acceptable to their system. So we have been working for the last year and a half or so to start moving our data into that system that will be easily integrated and with 911 and the PSACs and all of the organizations that will be consuming that information.
Okay, thank you.
Second question?
Yeah, just in the report, when you're going through, how do we know if the plan is working? Like there was no place in the report where there'd be, we'd get a report on whether we're getting the outcomes that we desire. Would that be just an ordinary staff report every now and then?
Lori?
Thank you, through the warden. That's a great question because if you remember that large square where you had the yellow and the red and said, okay, on this side, you know, you've got great green and there's all these other areas for improvement. So something like that, it would be a staff report coming back and another check probably in about 2 years where we do bring them in to say, we want you to reproduce this chart and we want to be able to show council, this is where we started in when we had our check today in 2022. This is how far we've come. And now look, we've got a lot more green. And it's a really good visual chart to be able to demonstrate to the public, to our lower tier partners, and to county council that the investments that they make have made a difference. And you can see that, you know, the governance has changed. The governance piece and the materials in there that reflect governance. I'm really happy to see that because we are evolving from, you know, a few years ago, there was a lot of the IT decision-making on what things come in, really coming from one small area in the corporation and those individuals have moved on and we're developing the senior management team to take on the governance piece. So it develops not only the IT and their ability to provide their service to the corporation, it also provides a great opportunity to develop a senior management team and to look at risk management, business continuity, and project management. But it is all reporting. The intention is we would report back to council in a manner that you can see, here's where we were, and here's where we are, and here's what we did to get there. And we still would have, I would expect, given the change and the velocity of change for IT business solutions, that we still would have areas where we would improve. It's constant improvement, but the intention totally is to report back. Absolutely.
That's fine.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? That must have been pretty thorough, not many questions. I'm gonna make a couple comments, you know me. I always do. So I look at IT and GIS, and I'm gonna go back to when I first started on council. That was an afterthought. In all honesty, it was. But over the years, we've seen how technology has changed our lives so dramatically that IT and GIS now is almost as important as EMS. And an example of that one, Rogers went down, for example. So this is something we do truly have to build on. Like, and the other great thing I see, and this is just going to make Randy and Steve mad, like we have asset management plans that we have to completely get very comprehensive data on. And this is where I see IT and GIS as a big player in that. And I know Susan referred to data management there a couple of times. And I know you're not supposed to assume anything, but I'm kind of thinking that's one of the areas she was thinking of. Correct me if I'm wrong. But this is truly something that we have to just keep getting better and better and better at. And the pandemic has actually brought that to a forefront because people weren't coming into offices and people weren't doing this. And I know Randy and Steve spent half their time running around retrofitting technology services in different areas of our buildings to try and keep us going. And that consumed a lot of their time as well. Like, let's be honest, but hopefully that's going to slow down. We've kind of got our property and building situation sorted out, and that's hopefully going to end. Randy, I used the word hopefully, but like, you know, it's been very important, and it's just going to keep getting more important. And the other thing, EMS was mentioned on that. Look at what we're going to need to keep EMS going at the high level at which we really want it to operate at. And it has other challenges, but this year is going to be one of them as well. Because they're bringing out new programs, all kinds of stuff, new data systems to be more receptive to each other. And, you know, we moved into integrated health program there, and it all is all part and parcel of this. Anyway, that's just a couple comments. Correct me, anybody want to make any? Councillor Kassenberg?
Thank you, Warden Aitchison. I just want to sort of express some enthusiasm for the open data reference in the plan. I think there's enormous opportunity, and I suppose I have a little bit of a question, or maybe it's a little rabbit hole to jump down with regards to open data. But how can a county that is, a mix of urban and rural, but fairly small population base compared to many other counties, sort of get started and get moving on open data access for our communities?
Gary, do you want me to answer that one, or do you want to take it?
Go for it, Susan.
Okay, thank you, through you, Warden. Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Typically what we find to get started on open data programs is municipalities start publishing data that's already, if you will, typically available, although in text reports. So for example, as I was waiting to share my report with you, I was listening to the planning discussion that was going on there. There's a lot of very important data that was included in that report, and the maps that were shown that could actually be easily presented in an open data format, so that then residents, businesses, whoever could actually take a look at that data and start, perhaps drawing their own conclusions, but also seeing what can be done. There's other data. Again, it's already publicly available. So you just publish that in that data format. So machine readable, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or something, Excel data, I mean, or some other kind of format, and then people can extract it and do what they need with it. And that's typically where people start. Of course, you do the privacy impact analysis. You don't want to publish anything out there that shouldn't go through there. So that's always a best practice. That's part of any open data program. It will always go through that assessment first, and then it gets published. That's typically how we start.
So just Councillor Wilhelm.
Question, and I think the answer probably should be in closed session. Where are we with cybersecurity? And like I said, I think that should be answered in closed session.
Yeah, we can do that at some point.
Perhaps, yeah, it is. We were impressed, I will say that. Anything that was of concern was discussed at that time and dealt with at that time. And so we were quite pleased with what we saw with cybersecurity. Again, I just will take this opportunity to emphasize you can't sit back, right? You know this, there's been enough incidents, certainly in your area type of thing, that you're very well aware of the risks and the challenges. So there's no resting with it. It's a constant evolution. So we've had a number of conversations. My colleague actually, who is an expert in that field, had conversations with the team to talk about cybersecurity and what can be done to mitigate the risks.
And I think since our most recent cyber attack in the area, I believe our IT department did kind of go back and check things over, right?
Yes, through the warden, we've been constantly monitoring and improving systems to mitigate as much as we possibly can.
But we all know nothing's foolproof. A good hacker is a good hacker. Okay, no other comments or questions? Well, I want to thank you, Susan and Randy and staff. Good report. Lots to digest, lots to work on. And I'm sure we'll be having this discussion again about budget time. Just so you're aware. Anyway, thank you very much. And I have a motion here that Perth County Council receives the report titled County of Perth IT and GIS Strategic Plan Report, and that Perth County Council approve in principle the IT and GIS Strategic Plan as contained in attachment number 1/IT and GIS Strategic Plan. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Hurlick and Councillor McDermott. Last chance for questions or comments. Those in favor? And that's carried. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, how are we doing for time here? Maybe we'll go another 10 or 15. Thanks, Randy. Or another 10 or 15. We'll take a short recess. How's that? Chance to stretch. So we're going to move on to the forestry tree inspector, and we'll bring Tyler. You'll be covering that.
I will. Thank you. Through the warden, before council is the July 2022 forestry inspectors report prepared by Forestry Inspector Marvin Smith. Marvin completed 2 inspections in response to a NOI or notice of intent, and 2 inspections in response to a request from a landowner. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those back to Marvin.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Any questions to pass along to Marvin Smith? Don't see any hands. I have a motion. Council receives the July 2022 Forestry Inspectors Report for information. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Kazenberg. Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Now we're going to move on to our ash tree diameter limit amendment update, and that's Sean.
Thank you, Warden. To you and through the council, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to report today. The report is before council, but I did want to highlight a few things. In an effort to help facilitate ash salvage projects, council passed an amendment reducing diameter and circumference limits on ash species listed under Section A of the forestry bylaw to 0 centimeters. And this amendment expires on September 5th. And at that time, diameter and circumference limits will revert back to their original values at each of the 4 points of measurements measurement as per Schedule A. And during this period of time, the amendment was, during the period of time the amendment was effective, it did help facilitate several ash salvage projects, with about half of all notices of intent submitted to the county specifying some sort of ash salvage component to the proposed harvest projects. And this, of course, is for notices of intent submitted pursuant to Section 3.2, which relates specifically to harvesting operations for that are going to be carried out under the diameter and circumference limits listed in Schedule A, as opposed to a silvicultural prescription. So in consultation with County Tree Inspector Marvin Smith, it was his recommendation that the county implement a 5 centimeter or 2 inch diameter limit. And this is opposed to going right back to the full limits because there does seem to be a need to provide an efficient mechanism to support ash tree salvage throughout the county. And so that's why we're sort of recommending this phased in approach. Mr. Smith also advised that the ash trees of this small size don't really provide enough sustenance to support emerald ash core development and are really not viable hosts for the parasite because of this. And therefore a 5 centimeter diameter limit preserves these small young trees for future ash growth by saving trees that are less susceptible to borer infestation, which provides an opportunity to have those smaller trees survive into thriving populations of mature trees in the future. Because this diameter limit really only serves to preserve trees that are resistant to infection due to their small size, landowners and logging contractors are still provided with an efficient mechanism for salvaging ash trees that are actually susceptible to ash borer infestation. So a draft bylaw amendment is attached to this report, and should council wish to exercise this option, it can be passed later on in the agenda. Upon council's decision, updated bylaw information will be posted to the county's website and linked via the usual county social media outlets. Information will also be circulated directly to area logging contractors as a notice and as an attachment whenever we receive any notice of intent. Because as you probably know, when we receive notice of intent, we stamp it and that's receiving it and send it back to the logging contractor. So we just have an attachment to that. So every time we receive one, they'll get the information then as well. So that concludes everything I wanted to cover in the report. I'm happy to receive any questions at this time.
Okay, thanks, Sean. Questions for Sean on this report? See any hands? Yeah, excellent report. Yeah, the ash tree borer definitely hasn't gone away. I thought I had one farm I was going to be able to save. And all the rest are gone and cut. Yeah, that one's going to get cut this fall. She's done. Too bad. Anyway, I have a motion here. Council receives the ash tree diameter limit amendable update. And the council approve a diameter limit of 5 centimeters or 2 inches and a circumference limit of 15 centimeters or for some of us older people, 6 inches for ash tree species listed under Schedule A of bylaw number 3836-2021. Councillor Kellum moves, Councillor Kazenberg seconds. Last chance for discussion. Those in favor? And that's approved, and we'll pass that bylaw when we get down to bylaws. Okay, next we have the restricted acts nomination day update report for information. And that is going to be Sean again.
Sure. So we're into you and to your council. As with every election, as per Section 275 of the Municipal Act, we need to calculate if it's mathematically possible for at least 75% of the current members of this term's council to be returning to next term's council. If it's mathematically impossible for more than 75% of members to be returning for the new term, then certain acts are restricted as per Section 275 of the Municipal Act, and these are listed in the report. And this is often referred to as a lame duck council. And for county council, our number would be 7. We're a 10 member council. So if it's 7 or less mathematically possible to be returning, then those restricted acts would apply. And these calculations are performed after the nomination period and after the election. So once certified results are posted by the clerks at each of the lower tiers, we can make our calculation. So as per the certified candidates list from each of the lower tiers, it is mathematically possible for 9 of the current members of council to return for the new term. And so therefore, county council is not in a quote lame duck position at this point. And restricted acts detailed in section 275 do not apply. And I just want to emphasize, this is a math, this is just cold numbers. This doesn't take into account likely or intentions or anything like that. This is just, is it possible? And based on the certified list, it is mathematically possible for 9 out of 10. This of course is going to be recalculated after the election in October. And so just to note also, as we were going through this and reviewing some of the information on the lower 2 websites, we did note that our inaugural meeting for the new term of council was scheduled for November 17th. And we reviewed all the lower tiers and we realized that one of the lower tiers will not have their councils installed until the 21st. Eligibility for membership in county council does require confirmation from each of the lower tier clerks, and that confirmation cannot be provided for councillors that have not yet been installed in their respective lower tier councils. So not all of the councillors will have been installed in the lower tiers by the time our 17th meeting comes up. And so staff, we basically can't have a meeting that day because of this. And so staff has set the new inaugural meeting for December 1st, since that would be the next regularly scheduled meeting on our schedule. And that's all I wanted to highlight in this report. Happy to receive any questions at this time.
Any questions for Sean? Councilor McDermott.
So that means we won't have a meeting on November the 17th.
That's correct. Through the word, we would have all of our councillors in place.
No, that's fine.
All right.
Through the warden, because we're not able to have a quorum, have our council meeting on the 17th, when you're finished with the resolution that we have for this, we would just ask council for a resolution confirming that the inaugural meeting for the county of Perth would be on December 1st, if you're in agreement with that. It makes sense, but once the other councils are in place on the 21st of November, you could have your inaugural meeting anytime after that. But we're recommending the 1st of December to keep it in line with the 1st and 3rd.
Questions? Deputy Warden Nagels.
I'm a little disappointed that this is all getting changed. The government wanted us to have our inaugural meetings sooner than later this year. We set the date way back in October of 2021 that the inaugural meeting would be the 17th of November. We've all kind of planned for that, and now suddenly we're having to change it because some of the lower tiers did not have their meeting before. I think that they need to start looking at this a little closer, what the county's doing. I believe there's going to be a conflict on December the 1st when we get that far. So we may have to change it again. I don't know. I could hardly believe that things, were to be kind of set and now suddenly we have to change it. So maybe like I said, maybe we'll have to change it again because I know there's something coming in that week. And yeah, thanks.
Other comments or questions? So the election is actually, is it the 24th of October?
Yeah.
So we will have a meeting the 1st of November with the old staff, like what the current staff council.
Right.
So then the later meeting in the month, we will cancel.
Correct.
So. Okay. So here's just a question. So as of November 1st, you'll have a ballpark idea who your county councilors will be, except for maybe the third person from Perth East and Perth North. And I guess maybe the deputy mayor first. So it would be the first meeting in November that people would declare their intention for working. So give some heads up before the 1st of December.
So through the warden, what typically has happened in the past is that any current councillor wishing to put their name forward for warden or deputy warden would make that known at that first meeting in November. And then as we progress to the inauguration meeting, December 1st, we would again ask if any new council members would like to have their name put forward for warden or deputy warden at that time.
Okay, so they get lots of time to get their campaign speech ready.
Correct.
Good, just checking. Okay, I have a motion here. Perth County Council receives the restricted acts after nomination day update report for information. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor McDermott. Those in favor, and that's carried.
If you want to do the confirmation for the December 1st meeting, that'd be great.
Have I got that in there?
No, so just.
Yeah, I don't have that motion.
I can read it.
Okay, Sean's gonna read, Sean's gonna read off a motion.
Tyler, but.
Or Tyler, sorry.
All good.
I'm thinking Sean was giving all the reports.
All good.
One of you guys.
One of the-
Sean or Tyler, one of you's gonna do it.
Yeah, so through the warden, the resolution would read that council confirmed that the inaugural meeting be held December 1st, 2022.
Okay, so that moved by Councillor Kellum. Do I have a second? Councillor Wilhelm. Last chance for discussion on that motion. Those in favor? That's carried. Okay. So we are going to do the legal corporate services report and they're going to take a short break.
Sounds good. We're really taking that one.
And so we do have Annette on the screen. This is Annette's report. No, Annette's a little under the weather. So you've got the report in front of you. If there's any questions with regards to her report, and then there's your usual lengthy good report, you can forward them here and Lori will try and answer those.
Yes,
So is there any questions on Annette's report with regards to legal / corporate services update? I don't see any hands going up.
It's an information report.
So anyway, it's mostly an information report, but sometimes you get questions. So I have a motion. Perth County Council receives the legal / corporate services July 22 update report. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Deputy Warden Nagels. Those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, before we go on to MSSC reports, we're going to take a quick break so you can stretch and get some
Because it's.
Get going because people have some, oh, there's Deputy Warden Higgins. We have some commitments at 11:45. Okay, next on the agenda is the Perth Archives update for Mssc, and Betty Jo is unavailable at the moment. So Lori's going to take this if there's any questions. The report's in front of you. You've had a chance to read it. Is there any questions on Betty Jo's report?
It's just housekeeping for.
It's basically housekeeping, get ready for shared services in 2 weeks. Okay, not seeing any hands. I have a motion. Perth County Council receives the activities report from Stratford Perth Archives for Mssc, and the council approved the report per submission to Mssc meeting of September the 15th, NP22, moved by Counselor Wilhelm, second by Counselor McDermott. Those in favor? It's carried. Moving on, POA. And is Danette available?
Yep.
Good morning, Danette.
Good morning, Warden. Good morning, Council. I'll be very brief on this report. This report is to provide you with an update on the second quarter of 2022 for the Provincial Offences Office. Currently, it has been mandated that by the province that our courts now facilitate both in-person requests as well as Zoom requests. It is the right of the defendant to choose the option of how they wish to appear. Individual courts were not able to proceed individually by either totally in person or totally virtual to accommodate what works best for them. Our IT department has worked diligently in making our court into a functional hybrid court. Having a division of how defendants wish to appear administratively puts a strain on staff in the scheduling and facilitation of these court requested matters. This new regime may cause more staffing requirements to be able to support our current level of service, both in the administrative function and the court function of this operation. Additionally, staff are in the process of reviewing newly released programs by the MTO and other ministries to allow a system to support bus camera infractions. And then on the last page of this report, there's a table showing a 3-year comparison of charges filed, revenue collected, and the distribution of revenue. And if you have any questions at this time, I'd be happy to answer.
Thanks, Danette. Any questions for Danette on her report? Don't see any hands. I have a motion. Council receives the POA Court Services Report for Mssc, an operational update report, and that Perth County approved the POA Court Services Report for Mssc, an operational update report for submission to the September 15th, 2022 meeting of Municipal Shared Services. Moved by Councillor Kazenberg, second by Councillor McKenzie. Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Thanks, Danette.
Thank you.
And next, we're moving on to Corey. Morning, Corey.
Good morning, Aitchison.
And we're ready for your mid-budget, mid-year financial report.
Thank you, Warden. And Council, you have in front of you is our Q2 results in relation to operations and capital for the County of Perth. As you are aware, we're still being impacted by COVID, and in relation to the Safe Restart money that we had received back in 2020 continues to offset some of the impacts of that within the Paramedic Services facilities and IT. To note as well, we're still forecasting to have still some of that money left over for into 2023, and it will be identified within the 2023 budget when we get to it. Through the report, if you look at the table 1, it identifies the Q2 compared to prior year. We're trending a little 1% higher than what we had last year, and 1% to us is about 470,000. The higher impacts of this is that we did have a significant January to March for winter. With respect to the salt content onto the roads, as well as the amount of events that we had to endure. Don't be too alarmed with the deficit as indicated on the reports. We do have some timing issues with the provincial money in relation to receiving that money. One of those areas is the community paramedicine program that we have a transfer payment agreement with the province. We still are spending the money, but we don't have the provincial money yet to offset those costs. As for the capital, again, when we get into Q2, major projects, capital, specifically roads, are not done until the August year. And we are seeing a significant cost currently on those projects. So if there's any specific questions to the report, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Corey. Any questions for Corey? Don't see any hands going up. I have a motion. Perth County Council receives the 2022 Q2 operating and capital budget mid-year financials report. Moved by Councillor Kellum, seconded by Councillor Wilhelm. Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Next we got draft asset management plan update.
Warren, I think we have the 2029 financial results first.
Yeah, actually, I just looked at my thing and I know we got financial results, and I'm looking at my. Oh yeah. I missed that one. Sorry about that, Tyler. Okay, take that one first.
Yes, thanks, Warden and Council. As alluded in the previous report, this report it will identify the impacts of COVID for 2021. To know, we showing a small surplus for 2021, but we did take in about $721,000 in COVID funding to offset some of the impacts in relation to COVID, and therefore would have been in a significant deficit if without the provincial money that we had received. There is some identifications of where those surpluses have been driven from. The table within the report, we did get some significant supplemental taxation revenue, but we also had an increase in our write-offs as well, but to the better of about $176,000. There are additional details within the report. I can speak to any of those details if council would wish.
Questions for Corey? Not seeing any hands. I have a motion here. County Council receives the 2021 financial results and year-end transfers report, and that County Council approves effective December 31st, 2021, the following reserve transfers. $62,008 transferred to the levy stabilization reserve, $14,828 transfer to the Paramedic Services WSIB reserve. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor McDermott moves, seconded by Deputy Warden Nagans. Questions or comments? Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Now we're going to move on to your asset management thing, Corey.
Thank you, Warden and Council. This final report is a little preamble to what will we bring back in October for a final asset management plan for 2022 in relation to the County of Perth. We have employed PSD to assist us in this asset management plan project. Within the executive summary of the from Public Sector Digest, they identified that 78% of our assets are in fair and better condition, with 86% of those asset details of our overall asset details. You know, to note as well as we're using combinations of not just age-based anymore. We're using more proactive life cycle strategies, specifically in our core assets of roads and bridges and culverts. It does identify within the report that our annual requirement to ensure our assets in a fair or even very good condition of $7.9 million a year. To note, we do bring these items back to council as a budget item in relation to our capital levy. Our capital levy has been identified as being somewhat deficient, but not to a extreme nature of increasing a overall municipal levy. What we've identified that our capital levy increases should stick around the 0.5% to 1% range of our total levy to help mitigate those areas. I think with other municipalities, you hear that the sustainable funding that we continue to receive, and you'll know when we do come back in October that the community, which was the gas tax, the CCEBF fund and the OSIF money is the sustainable money that we receive from the province to essentially offset these impacts on obtaining money through the county levy through the capital reserve. If there's any questions on the report, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Corey. Questions for Corey? So we're basically going to have our asset management plan done by October, and the report's coming back.
Through the warden, yes, that is correct, for a final approval and to post on the website for the purpose of the Ministry of Infrastructure.
Okay, some of the grants coming out now are based more on your information in your asset management than they are on population and et cetera now, are they not?
That is correct. OSIF actually is moving towards what they call as a current replacement value model, not based on population or any type of assessment. It's more of in relation to how your asset management plan and the required current replacement values that you have. I believe the province is looking at how multiple different year asset management plans are going to come together to formulate some type of uniform allocation. So they're going to have to take a specific point in time because there are asset management plans that are 2019 in nature, are essentially 2 years out of date compared to our asset management plan, which we would be bringing back, and it would be based on our 2022 current replacement values.
Perfect. No questions for Corey? Got a motion. County Council receives the 2022 draft asset management plan update report. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor McDermott. Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Now we're going to move on to Paramedic Services. And with us, we have Tristan Barter and Debbie Hunter. And some of you may not have met Debbie Hunter, but she is our manager of MIH. Does a great job. So I'll introduce you. I know I've met you. You've been out to the farm. And I know Tristan. You've got steaks bagged. But some of you may not have met either one of you, but that's who we have with us today. Mr. Mike's taking a well-deserved holiday. I think he's in Minnesota.
I believe he is right now.
Family and whatnot. Anyway, so Tristan, you're going to do the first report?
Yes.
Okay.
So, good morning, council members, Warden Hutcherson. So, as the ward had mentioned, my name is Tristan Barter. I am employed here with Paramedic Services as the Assistant Deputy Chief. I work primarily in the performance and development side of things. And one of my primary functions is the training and the delivery of training and quality assurance program to our 121 paramedics and commander staff. The following report, which I'm here to present and discuss with you today, is in relation to a single source purchase of iSimulate training equipment through Echo Healthcare as it's budgeted in the 2022 capital budget. As you'll see in the background information section in the report provided to you, major components of our training program are quality assurance and reporting. As a paramedic service here in Ontario, our quality assurance and reporting includes 4 real key areas. And those are paramedic certification, which is held through Southwest Ontario Regional Based Hospital Program, Perth County Paramedic Services internal policies and procedures, provincial standards and legislation, and MOH memos governed by the Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. Simulating medical emergencies help us to ensure that our clinical staff are at their best and ready to serve patients within our community. While simulation equipment can range in expense, we at PCPS have determined that the iSimulate equipment package allows training to staff to provide real-life, real-time simulation which replicates how paramedics receive and analyze data in the field. Additionally, iSimulate equipment allows storage of the simulation training data to be stored and recorded for regulatory compliance purposes. In the previously noted MOH, LTC, and our SWARP and service-specific policy sections that we use essentially in our ministry review to stay compliant with standards and legislation. The iSimulate training equipment is the most cost-effective way to deliver scenario-based education to our staff. The use of actual physical mannequins can be very expensive when you begin purchasing mannequins of all different sizes. So neonates, infants, childs, and adults, as well as when you also factor in the cost of their repairable replacement parts over time. The iSimulate training package is unique in its ability to be versatile. The age, gender, and size of simulated patients is done virtually using existing less expensive mannequins that we already have, and can be deployed through training even when mannequins may not be available. So it allows us to do virtual training from base to base. As you know, it's a very broad county geographically, so we can deliver training with this iSimulate virtual equipment from here to, say, staff members that may be at a more remote base. A further benefit of the iSimulate training package is that SWARF and surrounding services use this same package, making it a seamless training experience for our employees who may be employed elsewhere who are already familiar with that training equipment. As I mentioned when I began the presentation, the goal of this presentation is to obtain direction and or approval to proceed with this single source purchase of iSimulate training equipment through Echo Healthcare as budgeted for in the 2022 capital budget, referenced by law 3632-2017G.
Okay, thanks, Tristan. Questions for Tristan on his report? See any hands? I've got a motion here. Perth County Council receives the paramedic service simulation equipment iSimulate capital single source purchase 2022 report, and the Perth County Council authorize staff to issue a single source purchase for iSimulate training equipment through Echo Healthcare as budgeted in the 2022 capital budget. Councillor Cullen moves, Councillor Kalsenberg seconded side. Last chance for comments or questions. Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. So now we're going to move on to the municipal shared services report. No, you don't have to leave. Oh, you're just
going to switch so she's on camera.
Oh, okay. Okay, welcome, Debbie.
Thank you. Through the warden, I am here on behalf of Chief Adair and the Perth County Paramedic Service Senior Leadership Team to present the mid-year update for the paramedic service. As I was introduced, I'm Debbie Hunter, so I've been here for about 6 months, and it's wonderful to be back in Perth County, I will say. So I'm just going to go over the points in this report that you have all received, and then there'll be a chance for questions at the end. The first section highlights our operations during the pandemic. We continue to monitor our potential exposures while responding to calls. And as we see the lower numbers of COVID in the community, the same is reflected for our staff. COVID does remain an area of concern, and we will continue wearing masks and appropriate PPE while patient facing, and we continue to monitor this situation for our staff. We have a well-established stock of PPE at this time. We've continued to experience hospital closures and are working with our local hospitals to determine how we can best support them during this challenging time. We've been augmenting our coverage during those closures and prioritizing the communication with our staff and community members so that everyone's aware. These upstaffs had not been budgeted for during 2022 and have come as an unexpected cost. Our call volume has increased over the first 6 months, and we expect to respond to more than 10,000 patients in 2022. We are closely monitoring and will provide a report on our hospital transfer of care times, which reflects the arrival at the hospital to transfer of care. Ideally, that target is 30 minutes, and we are seeing numbers of 21 to 26 minutes on average. And we continue to report these times to the Emergency Medicine and Critical Care Program Council with hospital-specific results. Also more to come about this in October. Research has been ongoing on our response time performance plan, which is required by the Ministry of Health through the Ambulance Act. And that looks at the length of time it takes the service to respond to different acuity level of calls. So we monitor for those times. Also more to come in October, but research has been going on for our response times, which looks at after the crew has been notified and them booking on the air, a length of time. Our current target is 120 seconds, and we continue to meet or exceed that target. Our logistics and support role has not yet been posted. This person will work on preventative maintenance schedules for our vehicles and equipment, order stock, and oversee the PAD program. And we expect to post in Q3. Our 2 ambulances are unfortunately still on back order, so we have not yet been provided a quote for that information. Our MIH group started their overnight coverage in July, and we've continued to grow in the community. We launched our urinalysis and were able to screen and prevent a trip for a client to their doctor in the first week that it was out. So it was an exciting win for us. And again, a more comprehensive report will be delivered in Q4 for updates on the MIH team. Perth County Paramedic Service will be implementing an alternate destination process, allowing paramedics to transport palliative patients fitting a specific protocol to a hospice center, bypassing the emergency departments. And there will also be a separate report delivered with more information on the process. We have been invited by the Huron-Perth Ontario Health Team to become a formal voting member, and we are in the process of reviewing the required documents. We do sit at those tables currently, but it's been brought to our attention that being a voting member could have our influence or our opinion more broadly heard, I guess. And just this week, our CAD-Link system went live in the ambulances. And so this system allows dispatch to directly send the data to the specific truck going on it so that their location, their mapping is a lot quicker than receiving that information and then going ahead to map it themselves. This also helps mitigate address errors. And the province is not currently supporting bidirectional data, but that's not a limit for our frontline staff. It only means that at the end of the call, they then have to call into the dispatch center to share the patient information. So it certainly doesn't slow us receiving the information. QP and Perth County settled their collective agreements, and it's passed ratification by the members and was also approved by council. Our commander's collective agreement with Teamsters expires at the end of 2023, and we expect to start negotiations the second half of that year. Our tiered response agreements are being worked on by the fire department and paramedic service chiefs, and we will share that update in the fourth quarter of this year. These last few are just general updates about the service. We're currently reviewing our deployment plan, specifically coverage in the north with respect to Listable's growing community. And our collaboration with Oxford, Elgin, and Perth has been slightly slowed with new leadership coming in for both Oxford and Elgin Paramedic Services. So that's just on a bit of a pause. And we have plans to initiate a paramedic advisory committee to inform decision-making and continue engaging staff. So that's something that will be coming up. Our patient satisfaction survey is still on our to-do list, but other priorities with MIH, COVID, staffing, and hiring has set that back. If you have any questions, I will be happy to do my best to answer them now. And if I'm not able to, I'll refer back to Chief Adair and come back to you with an answer.
Thanks, Debbie. Questions for Debbie on this report? So you did a great job. I got one comment. So Mike shared with me an email just before he left on holidays. And we were talking about, and you had mentioned in your report there, the number of increased calls for EMS.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a report, and I can't think of who it come from, but it showed the number of increased ambulance use versus the population growth. And so you may not have seen this yet, but the population growth, I'm going to say, was like, say, 4%. And the ambulance calls are increasing by like 25%. So you happen to see that, Tristan?
I've seen that,
I can't remember the exact numbers, but they're alarming.
It's substantially, yes, the number of ambulance calls is substantially greater than the rise in population.
It was like, I read that one. I gotta read that again. That can't be right. And apparently it was right.
60% in the next 2 years or
It's phenomenal.
There
So, and the reason I'm bringing this up, and this is for county councils to wrap their head around, there is gonna have to be some sort of changes as to the way we deliver paramedic services. And I remember Councillor Wilhelm and I and Mr. Matt Gilpin went to a session in Waterloo just as COVID was starting. And that was gonna be in the future of EMS and health units. That's all paused because of the pandemic, but that's a discussion that really has to come back to the forefront. Anyway, I'm just telling you that, so when you come back, you might have some fairly serious. My comment back to Mike Adair, our director, was who's going to initiate these changes? Because everybody wants to see them pass the buck. Anyway, I'm just bringing it up just so you know, Daryl.
No, I'll further quick add to that, being around the topic. I'll keep it quick, but I like numbers and I like statistics, and this is the kind of stuff that interests me. And the aging population is an epic issue, and I've beat that drum, if you would, for 2 years straight at the local level, and I brought it up here. And we're really going to be wrapping our heads around that over the next years, and it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to get stuff to us. We got to cover it. It's going to be huge. It's big time.
And the other comment
happening quick
that Debbie made was alternate destinations. So Mike and I had a couple chuckles about that because I didn't really say where we were going other than the hospital, but that's another discussion for down the road. Okay, I have a motion. No questions or comments? Other than me? Okay, Perth County Council receives the Municipal Shared Service Committee / Perth Paramedic Services September 22 report. And the Perth County approves the Municipal Shared Service Committee / Perth Paramedic Services September 22 report for submission to the September 15th, 2022 meeting of the Municipal Shared Services Committee. Moved by Councillor Wilhelm, second by Councillor McDermott. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep up good work. Okay, moving on. Public Works, John.
Thank you, Warden Aitchison. Good morning, Council. This report is to approve a 2-year extension of the janitorial services contract with GDI Integrated Facility Services. Back in 2020, Council approved a contract extension with GDI, which included an increase in square footage being cleaned, an increase in cleaning frequency at some of our facilities due to the pandemic, and the option to further extend the contract an additional 2 years beyond 2022. GDI has requested a 2% increase in the current contracted price for both years of the extension. This was a similar request in the 2020 extension and is in line or below other contract extensions within the department. As part of our discussions with GDI, we indicated that over the next 2 years, we expected that some of our spaces requiring cleaning would change due to lease terminations and newly constructed spaces. GDI is more than willing to adjust their cleaning services to accommodate any of these changes. We have been pleased with the services provided by GDI over the past 4 years and recognize their efforts and services during the pandemic. Staff recommend Council approve the 2-year extension.
Questions for John on that report? Pretty straightforward. Reasonable increase. Okay, I have a motion. Perth County Council receives the janitorial services contract extension report. And the Perth County Council approves the 2-year extension of the janitorial services contract to GDI Integrated Facilities Services. And the Perth County Council authorized the warden clerk to execute the contract extension between the County of Perth and GDI Integrated Facility Services. Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Wilhelm. Those in favor? And that would be carried. And now we're going to do the roads division update.
Thank you, Council. We're just going to get Bill Wilson up on the the screen here, and he's going to walk you through this report.
Morning, Bill.
Good morning, Warden Aitchison. Good morning, Council.
We're ready for your report here.
Okay, thank you. Just going to go through this report briefly. It's to provide Council with an update on some of our major road and bridge capital projects and a bit of our operational undertakings over the last few months. So for this budget year, we have 3 major road rehabilitation projects. Perth Road 139 from St. Mary's to Wayland Line. That project was completed the month of July, and then internally we did some end of project cleanup there with granular shouldering and line painting. All in all, that project went well. That one was a little different in the fact that we used stress absorbing membrane interlayer before placing a surface asphalt on that road section. Moving on to Perth Line 8, that project is scheduled to start as far as the road reconstruction portion on Tuesday following the long weekend here. Contractor Rotomil will be moving in, and I believe they're starting on the westerly end of that project, nearest to Kirkton, and then working towards 163. Probably be about 4 days on that, and then 2 weeks following that recycling, we will be placing surface asphalt on that section of roadway. Internally on that project, our internal staff replaced a large diameter culvert. That was completed in July as well. So we're in good shape there to finish that project off. Probably by the end of September, that one will be wrapped up. Perth Road 131, another fairly large project, which sees the reconstruction of that section of road from the northern limits of Milverton out to Perth Line 86. That job was, the road was recycled during the month of August, a few weeks ago. And then paving will wrap up on that section of roadway by the end of day today. So that should be good to go ahead of the long weekend here. Then we will be placing the granular shoulder probably within the next week or so. Also had 2 bridge projects, same contractor working on both. One of them was north of Poole on Perth Road 121. That job is completed. The deck's been repaired and waterproofed and paved. And the other structure currently under construction is also on Perth Road 121 in the village of Millbank, kind of right between the line 72 east and west. It's a bit of a tough location for a bridge rehab job, but I think traffic control is going quite well on that job. The repairs are going a little slower than what we would have liked. It's nothing more than, we're not expecting any significant, quantity extras or anything like that on the project. It's just taking the contractor a little longer than what we had hoped, but still planning on having that section opened mid-September, and then it will be waterproofed and paved shortly following that. Other than that, just some notes on general maintenance activities completed over the past little while here. Road safety, we are continuing to rotate our radar feedback signs throughout villages, throughout the county road network. We purchased 2 additional units to help us get those out and rotated a little bit more frequently. We've had good feedback on that program. And we also have purchased and are using an electronic message board to notify of capital construction programs, traffic delays, pending road closures, and also to use some additional safety messaging. I believe those signs, one will be out on 86, and I think the other one's heading out to line 20 ahead of this long weekend, just to reiterate some safe driving behavior messaging for the passing motorists. And one other program noted in here, or one other project noted here, is the intake 2 of the winter modernization project, which was a joint venture between the county and our local municipalities to install AVL software and put road patrol programs and have some consistency with those technologies amongst the group. That one is on track for completion end of September. And I believe everybody has the AVL systems installed on their fleets and they're up and operational. So they should be in place for this upcoming winter season. If council has any questions on that report or any of the projects, John or I are here. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Councillor Wilhelm.
Just a couple of comments. The on Road 139, the stress absorbing membrane project, that was very dusty, and I don't know if staff knew it was going to be quite as dusty as it was, but I think they did an excellent job on controlling the dust. And Branco I think they did a great job on finished product and an excellent job on traffic control.
Yes, I drove that road on Sunday.
Yeah.
It was a lovely ride.
Sure is.
Any other questions for either Bill or John? Don't see any. Anyway, I got a motion here that Perth County Council receives the road division update report. Moved by Councilor McDermott, seconded by Councilor Hurley. Those in favor? It's carried. Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
John.
Thank you.
And actually, we still have the facilities project update, so I'm not sure if you're staying on for that, Bill, or not.
Thank you, Warden. I'll take that one. This report is to update our 2 major facility projects that are in progress. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of things for council. I have provided a few pictures here of the courthouse elevator project to show some of the progress to date. Made some significant progress with the excavation of the elevator pit, and most of that's on of course, the basement level. The only issue with that project to date is just kind of the delay in getting the underpinning done. That's kind of a key phase of this project, and we'd hope to have that underpinning completed by now. So that may cause some delay in the project. After the holiday weekend here, we do have Superior Court starting back up, and so we'll be competing against their schedule there to do some of this construction. On the good side of things, we haven't encountered too many issues with that particular project as yet, so knock wood, that will continue to be the case. However, with the 5 Huron and Connecting Link Addition project, we are in the design development phase. And just so council is aware, I did convey to the design team a number of concerns or items that council has previously expressed with this project. And one of those was to try and utilize the existing accessible ramp to 5 Huron that was reconstructed in 2019. I did meet recently with the architect Ann Mayhew to review initial plans for the Connecting Link addition. And due to different floor elevations at 5 Huron and the courthouse and other grades in the area, it is not feasible to incorporate the existing accessible ramp. As well, we are currently have a request for pre-qualification out to solicit submissions of contractors to undertake the construction of this project. And we expect to be back at the October 6th meeting with results of that pre-qualification and a presentation from the project design team from Mayhew and the architect to give you an overall overview of the design of that project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for John? Don't see any hands going up. I have a motion that Perth County Council receives facilities project update report. Councillor Cullen moves, Councillor Wilhelm seconds. Those in favor? That's carried. Moving on. Council reports. Anybody got anything for council reports? Okay, don't see anything. Bylaws. I have one here. And that is the ash tree diameter limit we discussed earlier on. And the bylaw is that bylaw 3892-2022 be read a first, second, and third time. And finally passed this first day of September 2022. Councilor McDermott moves. Councilor Wilhelm seconds. Those in favor? That's carried. Perfect. Notice of motions. I think we have any other business. See any hands? Announcements? Councilor McKenzie?
Just announced that the Mitchell Fair Parade is on this holiday weekend. First time really in 2 years that it's going to be in person, so I think they're anticipating a good turnout. Hopefully that follows suit, so.
I know List will have theirs and that was a huge turnout. Just out of curiosity, what they're really looking for. I didn't get an email to come to that.
I would imagine you did.
I didn't see one.
Oh, okay, well, come Friday night.
Actually, I got another parade. No, not this weekend. That's the 10th. No, I was looking actually. I didn't know if you were having it or not, but I was looking for another one.
Opening ceremonies are 7 o'clock, either at the arena or community center. I'm not sure. They're moving stuff around, and then the parade is 11:30 on Saturday.
I'll check my junk file again.
Yeah.
Sometimes they seem to end up there, but yeah, the last ones I found were all in my junk file, but I didn't see one for Mitchell. Which isn't the end of the world because it's been kind of steady. Okay, moving on. Councilor Wilhelm.
I have to announce that, of course, Kirkton Fair Parade is Saturday, September 10th at 10 a.m. So it's always fun and well attended.
And hopefully the recycling's done on that road before the parade.
Half will be, yeah.
Councilor Kassenberg, did you have your hand up there? Okay, no other announcements? I have a motion that Perth County Council moved into closed session at approximately 11:32 in accordance with section 239 of the Municipal Act to consider a matter pertaining to legal advice / litigation and a matter pertaining to identifiable individual. Those in favor, or moved by Councilor McDermott, seconded by Councilor Kassenberg. Those in favor, that's carried. Okay, so we're gonna have to just stop the streaming process and we're gonna have to get a couple on. We have the confirmatory bylaw. Got to get to the right page here. And that is bylaw 3893-2022 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council of the corporation of the county of Perth at its regular meeting held September 1st, 2022. Get ready first, second, and third time, and finally passed September 1st, September 1st of 2022. Moved by Councilor McDermott, second by Councilor Wilhelm. Those in favor? That's carried. And motion to adjourn at 11:48, Councilor Kellum, seconded by Councilor Wilhelm. Those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.